You are alone right now. Maybe you're in a quiet room. Maybe you're surrounded by people. It doesn't matter, because your brain cannot tell the difference. Right now, somewhere inside your body, the same biological alarm system that fires when you're physically injured is firing. Not because you're bleeding, not because a predator is nearby, but because some ancient part of your brain has decided that you are dangerously isolated. And here's what nobody tells you. That alarm doesn't just make you feel bad. It changes your heart. It changes your immune system. It rewires how your brain processes the world around you. Scientists have now confirmed what many people quietly suspected. Chronic loneliness is one of the most dangerous conditions a human being can experience. More dangerous than obesity. More dangerous than smoking 15 cigarettes a day. And we are living through the loneliest period in recorded human history. So the question isn't just interesting, it's personal. Because there's a very real chance that what we're about to unpack is happening inside you right now, whether you feel lonely or not. Let's start with the question nobody thinks to ask. Why does loneliness hurt? Not hurt metaphorically. Not hurt in a poetic sense. Why does being alone actually produce physical pain signals in the human brain? Because here's the wild part. It does. In 2003, neuroscientist Naomi Eisenberger ran an experiment. She put people inside a brain scanner and had them play a simple ball-tossing game with two other players. Except those other players were controlled by a computer. And at a certain point, they just stopped throwing the ball to the participant. They were excluded, socially rejected, in a fake video game, for about 2 minutes. The part of the brain that lit up? The exact same region that activates when you experience physical pain. The dorsal anterior cingulate cortex. The brain does not have a separate system for social pain and physical pain. They share the same circuitry. This is not an accident, and it's not a design flaw. It's a survival mechanism that is hundreds of thousands of years old. Think about what being alone meant for most of human history. You were separated from your tribe. You were exposed to predators. You couldn't find food. You had no one to protect you while you slept. Social isolation wasn't just unpleasant. It was a death sentence. So your brain evolved to treat it exactly like one. Loneliness is your brain screaming at you to reconnect. The same way hunger screams at you to eat. The same way thirst screams at you to drink. It is a biological alarm, ancient, urgent, and absolutely real. But here's where it gets interesting. Because the alarm was designed for a world that no longer exists. When that loneliness alarm stays on, when it fires not for 2 minutes in a brain scanner, but for months, or years, your body starts to respond as if it is in a state of war. Researcher John Cacioppo spent decades studying loneliness at the University of Chicago. What he found was alarming. Chronically lonely people show elevated levels of cortisol, the stress hormone. Their immune systems shift into a mode called conserved transcriptional response to adversity, which sounds complicated, but what it means is this. The body starts preparing for injury and infection. Inflammation increases. Antiviral defenses go down. Your body is preparing for a physical threat that isn't there. And it does this chronically, day after day. The cardiovascular system is under sustained stress. Blood pressure rises. Sleep is disrupted. Lonely people wake up more often during the night because that same ancient brain is still scanning for threats in the darkness. The result is that even when lonely people sleep, they don't fully rest. The numbers that came out of this research are almost hard to believe. Loneliness increases the risk of early death by 26%, social isolation by 29%, living alone by 32%. To put that in context, obesity raises mortality risk by around 20%. Loneliness is more dangerous. But wait, because it gets stranger than that. Loneliness doesn't just damage your body, it changes how your mind works. Cacioppo's research found something that sounds almost paradoxical. Lonely people become more sensitive to social threat. They perceive hostility in neutral faces. They interpret ambiguous situations as rejection. They unconsciously pull back from social situations, which makes them more isolated, which makes the alarm ring louder, which makes them pull back more. It's a trap, a feedback loop. The very thing that's supposed to push you toward connection ends up pushing you away from it. This is sometimes called the loneliness loop, and it's one of the reasons loneliness is so difficult to escape once it sets in. It's not a character flaw. It's not weakness. It is your brain running a program that made perfect sense on the African savanna and is catastrophically wrong for the modern world. And here's the part that should genuinely unsettle you. You can be surrounded by people and still be caught in this loop. You can have hundreds of online connections and be deeply, biologically lonely because your brain doesn't count followers. It doesn't count text messages. It counts something much more specific. What your brain is actually measuring is felt security. The subjective sense that there are people in your life who would show up, who know you, who you could call at 2 a.m. This is why social media has not solved the loneliness epidemic. In fact, for many people, it has made it worse, because it creates the visual of connection without the biological reality of it. You are watching other people's highlights. You are performing your own, and your ancient brain looks at all of it and says, "This isn't what I need." What it needs is eye contact, physical presence, vulnerability, the knowledge that someone else's nervous system has synchronized with yours. Because that is literally what happens in close human contact. Your nervous systems begin to regulate each other. It's called co-regulation, and it is as fundamental to human health as food and water. No app has ever replicated it. Here's the part of this video that nobody expects. The United States Surgeon General declared loneliness a public health epidemic in 2023. Not a cultural problem, not a personal failure, a health crisis in the same category as smoking and obesity. Half of American adults report measurable levels of loneliness, and the sharpest rise isn't in elderly people living alone. It's in people aged 15 to 24, the most connected generation in human history, by every measurable technological metric, is the loneliest. Because we built a world optimized for productivity, mobility, and individual achievement. And in doing so, we quietly dismantled the structures that kept the loneliness alarm quiet. Extended families scattered across cities. Neighborhoods where nobody knows each other's names. Work replacing community. Screens replacing presence. We didn't do it out of cruelty. We did it without noticing. And now the bill is coming due, in cortisol levels and inflammation markers and mortality statistics. But here's what this actually means. If loneliness is biological, if it is a signal, not a personality trait, then it also means that connection is biological, that your need for other people is not a weakness. It is as real and as legitimate as your need for oxygen. The research on what actually reduces loneliness is surprisingly simple. Not more contacts, not bigger social networks, deeper investment in a small number of relationships, regular in-person contact, the willingness to be known, not performed. Your brain spent 300,000 years learning to need people. That need didn't go away when the smartphone was invented. It didn't go away when cities got bigger. It is sitting inside you right now. Patient, ancient, and absolutely insistent. The question isn't whether you need connection. That question has already been answered by your own biology. The question is what you're going to do about it.